Karen thought she was doing me a favor, but she had no idea the destruction she would unleash. As the sanitation truck barreled towards my driveway, I braced myself for the impact. This was going to get messy. "Where are my trash bins?" I yelled, storming out of the house. The crisp morning air stunned my face as I scanned the empty driveway. My routine was thrown off, and I needed to get to work on time. My neighbor, Karen, peeked out from behind her front door, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Oh, I moved them to the curb for you. Thought I'd save you the trouble." I clenched my fists, my blood boiling. The trouble. "Karen, you know I always put them out myself on Wednesday mornings." She shrugged nonchalantly. "Well, now they're ready for the truck. You're welcome." Before I could respond, the familiar rumble of the sanitation vehicle reached my ears. I whipped around just in time to see the massive truck barreling towards my driveway. "No, no, no," I shouted, sprinting towards the bins. But it was too late. The truck slammed into the plastic containers, sending them flying in all directions. One careened straight towards me, slamming into my shin with a sickening thud. I crumpled to the ground, clutching my leg in agony. The truck screeched to a halt, the driver jumping out in a panic. "Sir, are you all right?" he yelled, rushing to my side. I gritted my teeth, fighting back tears. "Do I look all right? Your truck just destroyed my property and nearly ran me over." The driver's face turned pale. I'm so sorry. I didn't see the bins until the last second." "Are the police on their way?" "No, the police aren't on their way," I snapped. "Karen over there moved my bins without telling me, and now I'm the one paying the price." Karen emerged from her house, her eyes wide with shock. "Oh my goodness, what happened?" I glared at her, my voice dripping with resentment. "Your little favor caused a sanitation truck to crash into my driveway. Now I'm injured, my bins are destroyed, and I'm probably going to be late for work." Karen's face fell, and she rushed over to help me up. I had no idea. I was just trying to help. I'm so sorry." I shrugged her off, wincing in pain. "Save it, Karen. This is all your fault." I turned to the driver, my tone more composed. "Look, I know it wasn't your fault. Can you at least help me get these bins out of the way?" The driver nodded, quickly springing into action. As we cleared the debris, I shot one last withering look at Karen. This was far from over. With the shattered remnants of my trash bins cleared, the sanitation truck driver helped me limp back inside the house. My throbbing leg was already starting to swell, and I knew I was in for a long, painful recovery. "I really am sorry about this, sir," the driver said, his brow furrowed with genuine concern. "I'll be sure to report the incident to my supervisor, and we'll cover any damages." I nodded wearily. "I appreciate that, but I doubt it's going to be enough. This is going to cost me more than just a few busted bins." He placed a sympathetic hand on my shoulder. "I understand. Take care of yourself, and let me know if there's anything else I can do." As the driver headed back to his truck, I turned to see Karen hovering uncertainly on my front lawn. I gritted my teeth, hobbling over to confront her. "What the hell were you thinking, Karen?" I spat, my voice shaking with anger. "Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused me?" Karen wrung her hands, her eyes downcast. I really was just trying to help. I had no idea the truck would come so fast. I'm so sorry." I let out a mirthless laugh. "Sorry? Sorry doesn't fix my leg, or replace my trashed bins, or get me to work on time. This is going to cost me a fortune, all because you couldn't mind your own business." She winced, taking a step back. I don't know what to say. How can I make this right?" I narrowed my eyes, a plan slowly forming in my mind. "Well, Karen, since you're so eager to help, I've got a few ideas. First, you're going to pay for all the medical bills and replacement bins. No questions asked." Karen's eyes widened in alarm. But I don't have that kind of money. I held up a hand, silencing her. Then you'd better find a way to get it. Because if you don't, I'll be taking you to court. And trust me, you don't want to mess with a guy who's got a broken leg and a whole lot of time on his hands. Karen opened and closed her mouth, clearly at a loss for words. I took a step closer, my voice low and menacing. This is your mess, Karen, and you're going to clean it up, one way or another. Do we understand each other? She swallowed hard and nodded, her face pale. Yes, we understand. I nodded, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. Good. Now get out of my sight. As Karen scurried back to her house, I turned and headed inside, already planning my next move. Karen had no idea what was coming. With my leg propped up on a stack of pillows, I stared down at the growing purple bruise, gritting my teeth against the dull ache. Karen's helpful actions had set off a chain of events that was quickly spiraling out of control, and I had no choice but to take matters into my own hands. I pulled out my phone and began furiously typing, my fingers flying across the screen. First, I called my insurance company to file a claim for the damaged trash bins and the medical bills that were sure to pile up. The agent on the other end of the line was sympathetic, but warned me that my rates might increase as a result. Wonderful, I muttered, running a hand through my hair in frustration. Just what I needed, higher insurance premiums on top of everything else. Next, I turned my attention to Karen. I pulled up her social media profiles, scanning for any useful information. It didn't take long to find her workplace listed on LinkedIn. A small accounting firm downtown. A wicked grin spread across my face as I began to formulate a plan. A knock at the door interrupted my scheming, and I groaned, bracing myself for another unwelcome visitor. To my surprise, it was the sanitation truck driver clutching a clipboard. Mr. Johnson, I'm so sorry to bother you again, he said, his brow furrowed with concern. I just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed and to get your contact information for the insurance claim. I waved him in, gesturing to the stack of ice packs on my leg. Well, as you can see, I'm not exactly in peak condition at the moment, but I appreciate you coming by. The driver nodded sympathetically, jotting down the details. Of course. And please, let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. We take incidents like this very seriously. Actually, there is one thing, I said, leaning forward slightly. I was wondering if you might be able to do me a small favor. By the time the driver left, I was grinning from ear to ear. Karen had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I limped out to my mailbox, wincing with every step. A thick envelope was waiting for me, addressed in Karen's neat handwriting. I tore it open, my eyes widening at the sight of the hefty check inside. Looks like Karen is finally taking this seriously, I murmured, tucking the payment into my pocket. Now it was time to put the rest of my plan into motion. As I hobbled back towards the house, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Karen was about to learn a very valuable lesson. Mess with me, and you'll end up paying the price. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. My legs still throbbed, but the check from Karen had arrived, and I was one step closer to putting this whole debacle behind me. I pulled up the accounting firm's website, my fingers tapping impatiently on the desk as I navigated to the employee directory. There was Karen's name, listed under senior accountant. Perfect. Picking up the phone, I dialed the number and waited, my heart pounding in anticipation. After a few rings, a cheerful voice answered. Thank you for calling Westbridge Accounting. This is Tammy speaking. How may I assist you today? I cleared my throat, pitching my voice a few octaves lower. Yes, hello. This is Detective John Briggs from the County Police Department. I'm calling regarding one of your employees, a Miss Karen Wilkins. There was a slight pause on the other end of the line. Oh my, is everything all right? What seems to be the problem? I leaned back in my chair, doing my best to sound grave and authoritative. I'm afraid there's been a bit of an incident. Ms. Wilkins is being investigated for insurance fraud, and we need to speak with her immediately. Insurance fraud, Tammy gasped. But that's terrible. Of course, let me get her on the line right away. Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation, I replied smoothly. Please inform Ms. Wilkins that her lawyer should be present as well. There was a brief pause, then the sound of the phone being set down. I waited with bated breath, a smug grin spreading across my face. This was going to be good. Moments later, Karen's voice crackled over the line, tinged with panic. Hello, this is Karen Wilkins. Ms. Wilkins, this is Detective Briggs, I said, deepening my voice even further. I'm calling regarding an incident that occurred yesterday morning at your neighbor's residence. You're being investigated for insurance fraud, and we need you to come down to the station for questioning. Your lawyer should accompany you. Karen let out a strangled gasp. I don't understand. What are you talking about? I haven't done anything wrong. I hissed disapprovingly. That's for us to determine, ma'am. Now, I need you to come down to the station immediately. The sooner we get this sorted out, the better. But I can't just leave work, she spluttered. My job, I'm afraid this takes precedence, Ms. Wilkins, I interrupted smoothly. If you fail to comply, we'll be forced to come pick you up. I suggest you gather your lawyer and head this way. The clock is ticking. With that, I hung up the phone, leaning back in my chair with a satisfied sigh. Karen was about to learn a very valuable lesson about messing with the wrong neighbor. I waited with bated breath, my gaze fixed on the front door. It didn't take long before I heard the familiar sound of Karen's car pulling into the driveway, followed by the frantic slamming of a car door. Moments later, Karen burst through the door, her eyes wild and her usually pristine appearance disheveled. All right, I'm here, she cried, clutching a small briefcase to her chest. What is the meaning of this? I leaned back in my chair, feigning a casual demeanor. Ah, Ms. Wilkins, so good of you to join me. Karen's gaze darted around the room, taking in the police station memorabilia I had strategically placed around my home office. Where's the detective? And what is this about insurance fraud? I raised a hand, silencing her. The detective had to step out for a moment. As for the fraud, well, that's what we're here to discuss. Karen's face paled, and she sank into the chair across from me, her knuckles white as she gripped the briefcase. I don't understand. I haven't done anything wrong. I hissed and shook my head. Oh, but that's where you're mistaken, Karen. You see, your little favor of moving my trash bins has caused quite a bit of trouble. A sanitation truck crashed into my driveway, and I'm now facing hefty medical bills and property damage. Karen's eyes widened in horror. Wait, you called the police on me. But I interrupted, holding up a hand. Let me finish. Now, I was fully prepared to handle this through the proper legal channels. But then I had a thought. Why not try to resolve this amicably? Karen's brow furrowed in confusion. Amicably? What are you talking about? I leaned forward, fixing her with a pointed stare. I'm talking about you making this right, Karen. You caused this mess, and now it's time for you to clean it up. Karen shook her head frantically. But I don't have that kind of money. I'm just a senior accountant at a respected firm. Yes, I'm aware, I interrupted smoothly. Which is why I'm confident you can find a way to make this situation right. After all, you wouldn't want your employer to find out about your little insurance fraud, would you? Karen's face went ashen, and she clutched the briefcase even tighter. You can't do this. It's blackmail. I shrugged nonchalantly. Call it what you will, Karen. But the way I see it, you have two choices. Pay up or face the consequences. The decision is yours. Karen's lips trembled, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Finally, She let out a defeated sigh and opened the briefcase, extracting a thick envelope. "Here," she muttered, tossing it onto the desk. "This should cover the damage and your medical bills." I couldn't help but smile as I picked up the envelope, my fingers tracing the familiar shape of the check inside. Wonderful. I knew we could come to an understanding. Karen stood up abruptly, her eyes blazing with fury. "You're a monster. You know that? This is the last time you'll ever mess with me." I simply waved her off, already mentally calculating how I would spend my newfound windfall. Yes, whatever you say, Karen. Now run along, and let's hope we don't have to have this conversation again." As Karen stormed out of the house, I leaned back in my chair, a satisfied grin spreading across my face. Sometimes, the best justice was the kind you had to take into your own hands. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity as I worked to put the pieces of my life back together. With the hefty check from Karen in hand, I was able to cover the medical bills and replace the damaged trash bins. The sanitation company even agreed to waive any further charges, satisfied that the matter had been resolved. However, the lingering ache in my leg was a constant reminder of the ordeal I had endured. My employer was understanding, allowing me to work from home as I recovered, but I couldn't help but feel frustrated by the disruption to my normal routine. And then there was the matter of Karen. I hadn't heard a peep from her since our confrontation in my home office, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was plotting some kind of revenge. The thought made my skin crawl, and I found myself constantly on edge, jumping at every unexpected noise or knock at the door. One afternoon, as I was hobbling around the house, I noticed a familiar figure lurking in the shadows of Karen's front yard. My heart raced as I squinted, trying to make out the details. Was that a camera? Gritting my teeth, I hobbled outside, determined to get to the bottom of this. "Karen," I called out, my voice sharp and commanding. "I know you're out there. Show yourself." The figure froze, then slowly emerged from the bushes, revealing Karen's guilty face. She clutched a small camera in her hands, her expression a mixture of defiance and thinly veiled fear. What are you talking about?" she stammered, her eyes darting around nervously. "I was just taking a walk." I narrowed my eyes, advancing towards her as best I could with my injured leg. "Don't give me that crap, Karen. I saw you lurking in the shadows, taking pictures. What the hell are you up to?" Karen took a step back, her grip on the camera tightening. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't taking any pictures." I let out a harsh laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. "You know, I should have known you wouldn't let this go. You just can't accept that you messed up, can you?" Karen's eyes narrowed, a spark of defiance flashing across her face. "Messed up? You're the one who blackmailed me. I had no choice but to pay you off." "Blackmail?" I scoffed. "Please, Karen, you brought this on yourself. If you hadn't stuck your nose where it didn't belong, none of this would have happened." Karen's grip on the camera tightened, her knuckles turning white. "Well, now I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I have evidence of your little scheme, and I'm going to make sure the police see it." I felt a surge of panic, realizing that Karen's threat was all too real. I couldn't let her ruin everything I had worked for. Gritting my teeth, I lunged forward, snatching the camera from her hands. "Hey!" Karen cried, reaching out to try and grab it back. "Give that back." But I was already limping back towards the house, clutching the camera tightly. "Not a chance, Karen. This ends now." As I slammed the door behind me, I could hear Karen's enraged cries echoing through the neighborhood. But I didn't care. I had the upper hand again, and I wasn't about to let her take it away. With the camera safely in my possession, I retreated to my home office, my mind racing. I couldn't let Karen's threat of exposing my scheme go unchecked. If word got out, it could ruin everything: my reputation, my job, even my future. I carefully examined the camera, relieved to find that the memory card was still intact. Quickly powering it on, I began scrolling through the captured images, my heart sinking as I realized the extent of Karen's documentation. There were photos of me limping around the house, images of the damaged trash bins, and even a video of our confrontation in the driveway. It was a damning trove of evidence that could easily be used against me. Gritting my teeth, I began to formulate a plan. I couldn't simply destroy the evidence. That would only make me look more guilty. No, I needed to find a way to turn the tables on Karen, to make her the one who was forced to keep her mouth shut. After a few tense hours of poring over the camera's contents, an idea began to take shape. I quickly set to work, methodically crafting a new narrative that would paint Karen as the true villain in this saga. As the sun began to set, I heard a frantic knocking at my front door. Peeking through the curtains, I spotted Karen, her face flushed with anger and desperation. "I know you're in there," she yelled, pounding on the door. "Give me back my camera, you snake." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. Swinging the door open, I fixed her with a steely gaze. "Karen, how nice of you to stop by. I've been expecting you." Her eyes narrowed, and she thrust a trembling finger in my direction. "Cut the crap, John. You know exactly what you've done. Now give me back my camera, or I swear." I held up a hand, silencing her. Now, Karen, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think we have some important matters to discuss." Karen's brow furrowed in confusion, her anger momentarily giving way to uncertainty. "What are you talking about?" I stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "Why don't you come inside, and we can talk this through?" Karen hesitated, her gaze darting around nervously. "I'm not going anywhere with you. Just give me the camera, and we can forget this whole thing ever happened." I shook my head, a wry smile playing on my lips. "I'm afraid that's not going to work, Karen. You see, I've been doing some digging, and I've uncovered some rather interesting information about you." Karen's face paled, and she took a step back. "What are you talking about?" "Well, for starters, I couldn't help but notice that the camera you were using is the same one that was stolen from the Westbridge accounting office last month," I said, my voice low and measured. Karen's eyes widened in horror, and she shook her head frantically. "No, that's not possible. And then there's the matter of the, shall we say, creative accounting practices you've been engaging in," I continued, my gaze never wavering. "Embezzling funds, cooking the books, it's quite the little operation you've got going on, isn't it?" Karen's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. She looked like a cornered animal, her panic and fear palpable. "So, here's how I see it," I said, leaning back against the doorframe. "You can either hand over that camera and keep your little indiscretions to yourself, or you can take your chances with the authorities. The choice is yours, Karen." For a long, tense moment, Karen stood there, her eyes darting back and forth as she weighed her options. Finally, she let out a defeated sigh and thrust the camera into my hands. "Fine," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You win, but this isn't over, John. You're going to pay for this, one way or another." I simply smiled, tucking the camera safely into my pocket. "We'll see about that, Karen. Now, why don't you run along and tend to your other pressing matters? I'd hate for your employers to find out about your little indiscretions." As Karen turned and stormed off, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. The tables had well and truly turned, and this time it was Karen who was left to pick up the pieces. In the days that followed, I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. Karen had been thoroughly outmaneuvered, her own attempts at revenge turned against her. With the incriminating camera footage in my possession, I held all the cards, and she knew it. As I continued to recover from my leg injury, I took great satisfaction in watching Karen's demeanor change. Gone was the confident, self-righteous neighbor who had so casually disrupted my life. In her place was a nervous, jumpy woman, constantly looking over her shoulder and avoiding any direct contact with me. I even caught a glimpse of her slinking out to her car one morning, clutching a stack of folders to her chest. No doubt she was making a frantic attempt to cover her tracks at the office, desperately trying to keep her embezzlement scheme under wraps. The thought brought a smug grin to my face. Karen had only herself to blame for this predicament. If she had just minded her own business and left my trash bins alone, none of this would have happened. But now, she was the one paying the price for her meddling. As the weeks turned into months, the bruises on my leg faded, but the scars of this ordeal remained. I had been forced to endure a significant disruption to my life, not to mention the financial burden of the medical bills and property damage. But in the end, I had emerged victorious, my reputation and livelihood intact. And Karen? Well, she had learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of interfering in other people's affairs. I had given her a taste of her own medicine, and she had been forced to swallow it, bitter as it may have been. As I sat on my porch, sipping a cold lemonade and watching the world go by, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Sometimes, the best form of justice was the one you took into your own hands. And in this case, I had done just that, and I had the last laugh to prove it.